Please don't kick me. I'm already hurt, cried the simple waitress. Then Mafia boss did this, the glass shattered before she did. In the crimson light of the club, a simple waitress knelt on the marble floor, trembling, bruised, and holding onto the last shred of her dignity. Her whispered words, "Please don't kick me. I'm already hurt," stopped everything. Even the devil himself listened. The glass hit the floor first. Champagne splattered over her shoes, shimmering like stars that had fallen too low. Then came the silence. Heavy, cruel, the kind that made you realize how small you really were. Clara Hayes was 22 and tired. Not the kind of tired sleep could fix. The kind that lives in your bones, fed by hunger, bills, and memories that ache when it rains. She worked double shifts at the Velvet Room, a nightclub owned by men who smiled too cold and tipped too much. That night, she was serving the private table in the back, laughter, cigars, and money on the air, and when she heard her name, "Clara," a man's voice slurred. "Come here." She turned, balancing a tray of champagne glasses. The enforcer, broad shoulders and red eyes, stood in her path. He grabbed her wrist before she could answer. "You think we don't see you listening?" He hissed. His breath stank of whiskey. "You spying for someone, sweetheart?" Clara shook her head fast. No, sir. I was just bringing the drinks." The slap came quick and sharp. The tray clattered to the ground, glass slicing into her palms. Her knees hit the marble with a dull crack that echoed too loud in her skull. The music didn't stop. No one looked. That was the rule. You don't see. You don't hear. You don't exist. Her ribs still ached from last week's beating, a mugging that had left her bruised and half broken. The doctor was a luxury she couldn't afford. She just wrapped her ribs herself, whispered prayers between pain, and kept going. Now that pain pulsed again as the man raised his boot. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling but clear. "Please don't kick me. I'm already hurt." For a moment the air changed. The music dulled, the laughter faded. The world waited. Then a low, calm voice cut through the room. Soft but lethal. "Stop." Every head turned. The enforcer froze mid-motion. His boot hovered inches above Clara's ribs. The air seemed to thicken, heavy with respect and fear. From the shadows near the bar, a man walked forward. Tall, deliberate. The kind of man whose silence carried more power than most people's rage. Dante Morelli. The name alone could make grown men flinch. His charcoal suit fit him like a second skin. His cufflinks gleamed gold under the crimson lights. His face was sculpted in stillness, unreadable, calm, dangerous. But his eyes softened when they landed on her. "What are you doing, Leo?" Dante's voice was low, each word precise, controlled. "She was listening in, boss," Leo stammered. "By the hallway." "She's a spy." Dante didn't raise his voice. "A spy? Who cleans tables?" The silence that followed hurt more than any shout could. He turned to Clara, extending a hand. Clean, steady, the kind of hand that promised safety but carried danger beneath. "Stand up," he said quietly. Her fingers trembled as she took his. He lifted her gently. The contact sent pain shooting through her ribs. She gasped before she could stop herself. Dante noticed. "You're hurt," he said simply. Clara tried to pull away. "It's nothing." "I just felt—" "You're lying," he murmured. His thumb brushed the inside of her wrist, feeling the quick, panicked pulse. "You're terrified." He let her go and looked at Leo again. "You think you can put your hands on my people and walk away from it?" "Boss, I swear I thought—" "That's your second mistake." "You thought." Two men appeared behind Dante, silent, suited, shadows made flesh. "Take him outside," Dante said. "Remind him of our code." Leo's pleas dissolved into the bass as they dragged him away. The door closed. Silence returned, colder now. Clara stood there, eyes wide, unsure if she'd just been saved or marked. Dante turned back to her. "What's your name?" "Clara Hayes." He paused. Something flickered in his gaze, like recognition, confusion, something almost human. "Clara Hayes," he repeated as if testing the name against memory. Then he said quietly, "Go home. You've done enough for one night." She nodded. As she turned to leave, Dante's voice followed her. "I never forget a debt." She didn't know what he meant, but he did. The next morning, sunlight crawled through her cracked apartment window. The kettle hissed softly. The only sound in the silence she called home. Her brother Jonah was still asleep. 10 years old, thin as a reed, dreams too big for the world they lived in. She looked at him, her heart both full and heavy. He was why she worked those late nights, why she smiled when her ribs screamed, why she stayed. A soft knock startled her. When she opened the door, a black car idled by the curb. A man in a gray suit stood at her doorstep holding an envelope. "Miss Hayes?" "Yes?" "Mr. Morelli sends his regards." He handed her the envelope and walked away without another word. Inside, $5,000 in cash. And a note. Just one line. "For what you did that August morning. 4 years ago." Her hands trembled. Her mind flashed back to that day. The farmer's market. The smell of ripe tomatoes, the old woman who collapsed by her booth. Clara had caught her, called 911 and stayed until the ambulance came. She never got her name, just remembered the gold bracelet she wore, engraved with a family crest. Dante's family crest. The realization made her sit down. The same man who terrified half the city was the son of the woman she'd saved. Tears blurred her vision. She pressed the note to her chest. For a moment the world felt strange, cruel and kind at once. But kindness from a man like Dante Morelli came with a shadow. She knew it wouldn't end here, and she was right. Because that night when she returned to work, every eye in the club followed her. Men whispered, some with respect, others with jealousy, and at the bar Dante watched her quietly, like a man staring at something he'd lost long ago. Clara could feel the shift the moment she stepped into the velvet room again. The same walls, the same faces, but everything was different. The waitresses stopped whispering when she passed. The bartenders stood a little straighter, and the men, the dangerous kind in polished shoes, no longer saw her as invisible. They saw her as his. Dante Morelli didn't speak to her that night. Not a word, but he didn't need to. His eyes did enough. From the private booth upstairs, he watched her move. Calm, deliberate, graceful despite the ache in her ribs. Every few minutes she'd glance up, and their eyes would meet for just a heartbeat. He'd look away first. Always. At midnight, when the club emptied and the music softened into silence, she found a small box waiting on the bar. Inside, painkillers, bandages, and a note in neat handwriting. "You don't have to survive alone." Her breath caught. Kindness was dangerous in this world. It confused her more than cruelty ever had. The next few weeks blurred into something strange. Dante never crossed a line, never spoke out of turn, but the distance between them shrank in invisible ways. He'd appear at her table, ask if she'd eaten, slip folded bills into her apron with no explanation, and then disappear again, back into the smoke, the noise, the empire that made him untouchable. Clara's brother, Jonah, noticed the change. "You're smiling again," he said one evening, grinning over a plate of mac and cheese. "Did something good happen at work?" She forced a small laugh. "Something kind." But kindness from men like Dante Morelli was never free. That truth came crashing in one stormy night when the club went dark, power cut, chaos rising. She just stepped behind the bar when the back door burst open. 3 men in ski masks stormed in, guns out, voices sharp. "Where's Morelli?" One shouted. Clara froze. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She could have hidden. She didn't. Instead, she whispered, "He's not here." One man grabbed her arm. "Then you'll do." And before she could scream, the sound of gunfire tore through the air. Smoke. Screams. The stench of gunpowder and spilled whiskey. Clara hit the floor, her hands over her head. The room blurred in flashes, boots, glass, gunshots, then silence. She opened her eyes slowly. Dante stood in the doorway, gun still smoking in his hand. His men flanked him, silent as death. 3 bodies lay motionless across the marble floor. He dropped the gun. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked shaken. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Her throat tightened. "No, you could have been killed." "So could you," he said softly, almost like it was a fact he couldn't bear. He knelt beside her, his hand hovering near her shoulder, not daring to touch. "You shouldn't have been here tonight." "I work here," she whispered. "Not anymore." She looked up at him then, the man who owned half the city, looking at her like she was the only real thing left in it. "I can't just leave," she said. "I have a brother." "We need the money," Dante exhaled sharply. "Money won't be your problem anymore." He stood, ran a hand through his hair and turned to one of his men.
Send 2 guards to her apartment.
Around the clock. If anyone touches her, I'll know. Mr. Morelli, do it. Clara's voice trembled. Why are you doing this for me? He hesitated, then said quietly, because someone once saved my mother's life when no one else did. And now I owe her daughter everything. The words hit her like a storm he'd known all along. Her knees felt weak. I didn't even know who she was. You didn't have to, he said. You just helped. No agenda, no fear. People like you don't exist in my world. For a long moment, neither spoke. Rain tapped against the glass. The club lights flickered back to life, revealing the wreckage. Glass, blood, silence. Go home, Clara, Dante finally said. And lock your doors. She nodded, but deep down she knew something irreversible had begun. Weeks passed. The violence faded into whispers, but something between them refused to settle. Dante still visited the club every night, and though Clara no longer worked there, he found reasons to see her. Sometimes it was to deliver food for Jonah, sometimes to check on her bruises, sometimes for no reason at all. He never stayed long, just long enough for the quiet to say what words couldn't. One evening he arrived without warning. No guards, no suit, just a gray sweater, sleeves rolled up and exhaustion in his eyes. Jonah opened the door first. You're the man from the car. Dante smiled faintly. Guilty? Clara appeared behind him, her apron still dusted with flour from dinner. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. I needed to see you. His voice carried a weight she didn't understand until she saw the headline folded in his hand. Rival family declares war on Morelli Empire. Dante, she breathed. He looked at her like a man who'd seen too much. If anything happens to me, promise me you'll take your brother and leave the city. Don't talk like that. I mean it, Clara. Promise me. Her eyes filled with tears. You're scaring me. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the faint scar on his jaw, the human part of him hidden beneath the empire. You once told me you were already hurt, he said softly. I didn't listen then, but I hear you now, she swallowed hard. And you? Who listens to you when you're hurt? He almost smiled, and a small broken thing. No one ever has. A silence followed, the kind that stretched between two souls who shouldn't care but already do. Then Jonah's small voice broke it. Are you going to stay for dinner? Dante blinked, then nodded. Yeah, I think I will. And for the first time the boss sat at a chipped kitchen table, eating overcooked pasta and laughing with a child who didn't know what fear looked like. For a few precious hours he wasn't a monster. He was just a man. But monsters never get to stay in the light for long. It happened on a Thursday. Clara was walking Jonah home from school when the car screeched around the corner. Black windows, no plates, her heart stopped. Jonah, run! She shouted. Gunfire tore through the air. She threw herself over him, glass exploding from nearby windows. Tires screamed and the car disappeared down the street. When she looked up, Jonah was crying, but alive. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone. One number, he answered on the first ring. Dante, I know, he cut in. His voice was low, deadly calm. They came for you? Yes, I'm coming. Within 15 minutes, black SUVs lined the street. Men with guns. Dante in front, fury written in every step. He pulled her into his arms before she could protest. You're safe now, he whispered against her hair, but his voice broke on the word safe. That night, he moved her and Jonah into one of his safe houses, a quiet cabin outside the city. Guards posted outside. Cameras hidden in trees. You'll stay here, he said. For how long? Until it's over. Clara searched his eyes. And you? He hesitated. If I survive this, I'll come back. And if you don't? He reached into his coat and handed her a small velvet box. Inside, a gold bracelet, old, elegant, engraved with a crest. My mother wanted you to have it, he said. She remembered your face every day until she died. Tears slid down Clara's cheeks. Dante, he brushed a strand of hair from her face. You saved her. Maybe saving you is the only good thing I've ever done. He turned to leave. Please, she whispered. Don't go. He stopped, his back to her, shoulders tense. If I don't go, they'll never stop coming. And then he was gone, swallowed by the dark. The silence that followed was heavier than the gunshots that once filled these halls. Clara stood in the dim light, her breath trembling, watching the man who had once been her nightmare now kneel before her savior. The Mafia boss, Adrian, didn't speak. He didn't need to. His eyes said everything. You're safe now. Clara's knees gave out, her strength drained from years of running, hiding, breaking. Adrian caught her before she hit the ground. For the first time in years, she didn't flinch at someone's touch. The others looked away as he whispered, "No one will ever hurt you again." Her eyes lifted, disbelief and tears blending. Why are you helping me?" His jaw tightened. "Because once, you helped me. You saved the only person I ever loved. My mother. I've been searching for you ever since." Time blurred after that night. Days turned into weeks inside the mansion, a fortress built on blood, now becoming her shelter. Adrian's men treated her like she was untouchable. The same world that once hunted her now bowed when she walked past. But she didn't crave power. She craved peace. And in the quiet corners of that cold house, peace began to find her. Adrian never asked her to stay. He simply gave her space to breathe, to exist again. Sometimes she'd find him outside at dawn, smoking in silence. She'd stand beside him, both of them wordless, the sunrise painting their scars gold. One morning he said softly, "You remind me what it means to fight for something pure." She looked at him, finally smiling. "And you remind me that even monsters can bleed. But peace doesn't come without ghosts. The world doesn't forget easily." One night, the same men who once owned her life came back to claim it, not knowing who guarded her now. Bullets tore through the darkness, but Clara didn't run. She stood in the doorway beside Adrian, calm, steady, fearless. When it was over, she walked toward the fallen leader of that gang. He whispered, "You were nothing." She looked down, her voice firm. "I was everything you could never break." Adrian watched her, proud, almost awed. For years he'd ruled through fear. But this woman, she ruled through strength born of pain. Weeks later, she packed her bag. Adrian found her standing by the door. "You're leaving?" She nodded. "You gave me my life back. I have to learn to live it." He didn't stop her, didn't plead. Just stepped closer and said, "Then promise me one thing. Never kneel again." Clara smiled, eyes glistening. "Not unless it's to thank God for people like you." Their goodbye was silent, just two broken souls meeting at the edge of redemption. Months passed. Somewhere far away, Clara opened a small cafe, the kind of place filled with music and light. On the wall hung a single framed photograph, a cracked pair of glasses beside a note that read, "You are stronger than the pain that tried to destroy you." Outside, the rain began to fall, very soft, cleansing, endless. And in another city, Adrian watched the same rain from his window. He whispered her words to himself. "Please don't kick me. I'm already hurt," then smiled, because now he finally understood what it meant to heal. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to share it. You never know who might need this reminder today, that even after the darkest night, light still finds a way. And remember, strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the quiet whisper that says, "I'm still here."